Arva.
I'm Gracie.
And I'm Yuritsa.
And you're watching SLPeas in a Podcast, episode 2.
We're back. We are back for twice the amount of fun.
Double the amount of fun.
Oh. We went there.
We're technically triple. Triple the amount of fun on this episode.
Triple the amount of fun for twice the amount of episodes.
I like that one.
We've doubled the amount of episodes we've done in ever.
And so if you haven't already realized, Gracie loves to make, I don't know if this is a pun. Like
terrible joke?
Terrible.
Just terrible jokes.
Really tries though. A for effort, Gracie. A for effort. So today we'll be talking about getting into grad school and the whole process from undergrad and up until grad school. And all three of us have had really different experiences. But Gracie and Yuritsa, like I had mentioned on the last episode, went to the same undergrad, but had very different experiences. So I figured we could start off with them and see like how their process kind of happened and move on that way.
Yeah, sounds good. Should I kick it off?
Kick it.
Alrighty.
Kicking it with Yadi.
So, Gracie and I went to Iona College for undergrad. And as I mentioned in the last episode, if you were able to catch it, I didn't know that I wanted to be in speech until I finished my whole freshman year, and then my sophomore year is when I took a first class in speech. So my college's requirements, because I missed that first year technically, I kind of had to bunch up classes, and I was also minoring in Spanish at the same time. So the first year was a bunch of core classes. Everything was pretty much mixed. And then my sophomore year, I bunched up all my speech classes. Well, sophomore year, I took only one speech class for the fall and then one speech class for the spring. And then junior and senior year, I actually had to bunch everything up. It wasn't an easy experience because I had 4 speech classes and then I'd have one Spanish class. Or because my cores were kind of done. And I kind of had to mix them in as I was doing it. So my experience is a little bit different because I wasn't sure the process of how to even major in speech. I didn't really have a lot of support at home to really know that I had certain requirements, and I really had to kind of be the leader to what I was doing. One of the main things that has really helped me was the community of speech people in the major. So even though I wasn't really sure how to finalize my process, what the right classes were, what the prerequisites for certain classes were, I always asked my friends around me what they were taking and what they knew. That was the way that I survived. I had this community of speechies that I would just say hey, what class were you talking about? And can I take that? Oh, I can't take that. I have to take this first. And I kind of had that aspect going for me. So that's a huge thing that I recommend undergrad students to do is use your community, use the people around you to help you navigate through this process, because there are people who are rock stars and know everything on how to go through the whole process, and there's some people like me who had to kind of figure it out as I went, but I had their support. Mm-hmm. So my undergrad experience, it was tough because towards the end I was doing a lot of speech classes, but like I said, I had a really good community of friends around me that I know I could count on. And not only were we majoring in speech, but we also were in clubs together and doing a bunch of extracurricular things together. So I definitely feel like having friends in your major is a huge plus for you. That's your lifeline. That's something that you definitely want to do. That's a goal for you. You need to have friends who are speechies because they will definitely help you out. I don't know if you agree with that, Gracie.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Especially talking about the clubs, my biggest club and the club that I spent most time in and working on was the speech club. So the Iona chapter of the NISLA was pretty active. I think we were a pretty great club, just saying. But everyone was so involved in trying to always pass on whatever they had learned. The year above was always there to help the year below. They had a little buddy system. So it was great that people who were going through it were already prepping the people about to go through it. So that kind of support system was phenomenal to have when you're, a little pea in a big pod. Yes, another terrible joke. But yeah, that's kind of, the thing that you take with you also when you leave. Like some of my closest friends now that I'll still text or message. We'll see how each other are doing in grad school. If we had questions about clients or, oh, I'm working with this population. What about this one? Like that network was so solidified in undergrad that now no matter where we went, we still have each other. So that's always nice to have, Look for those people. They will be your people. They will be your P's, your SLP.
Yeah, that was definitely our experience. And I think, although it didn't make it easy to have extra things on top of your speech classes, but it was so important to keep that aspect of your community. Even like that's one of the reasons why I chose Iona College. I had all these different options, but what really got me into choosing Iona was the engagement aspect of it. I was like, this is such a cool campus where everyone loves to be involved. Everyone is like out doing the extra activities and they're just really enjoying having fun and they value that. So I was like, connections and the people I talk to, that's how I'm going to be successful. So that was like one of the main reasons why I chose Iona too. So
yeah, very, very big service campus. And I feel like in our field, that need to do service work is a big driving force for all of us. We all wanted to help people. That's kind of why we came into this. So also having a college that had outlets like that where, you can volunteer your time here, or we want to organize a drive for something and there were 15 people that give you a charity to help. Like it was always ready to support that need to do more, which I think helped all of us when we wanted to continue on. Oh, I definitely like this feeling. I definitely want to keep doing more. Oh, well, then I definitely need to be a speech pathologist.
Yeah. And do you guys feel like Iona prepared you for grad school well? Like, do you think that was a solid education as well?
Solid education, definitely. I don't know if anything can totally prepare you for grad school, because when you're an undergrad, you're really kind of, it's still fun. I hate to say it like that, but it's like you're in your classes with your buddies, you still joke around, you're there for 45 minutes to an hour, you leave, you go around, it's not terrible. And then grad school is your time is no longer your own. You are working for free. You are studying so that you can continue to work for free so that one day someone will pay you for that. And it's very stressful. And I think that especially Iona being such a small school and New York Med being a small cohort, that was also great. Like we learned that relying on the close-knit friends that you get will help you. Like we got that skill transferred, and obviously a foundation of education. But there's more of a mental preparedness you need to have going into grad school, which is just be flexible. The two of them can attest to the best analogy I can give you. I had a set of colored pens. Do you remember my colored pens?
gosh.
I had colored pens. I loved them so much. Every color went to a subject, and that subject had the folder that matched, and that folder matched a notebook, and everything was written, and even my laptop had that colored folder. Like, it was all so rigid, right? A friend would need a pen. If they forgot to give me back my pen, I freaked out. And then, because there was one missing. Not to mention, if they put it back themselves, I swear I didn't talk to Arbor for a day after this. She put them back in the wrong order, and I was like, what are you doing? It drove me nuts. Halfway through grad school, someone asked me for a pen. I was like, I don't even know if I have one. They were everywhere. Sometimes you just need to let that stuff go, and you need to learn to be flexible. That's the best analogy I can give you for the way your brain will feel. It was like my nice, neat, organized pens became, I hope I have one. Otherwise, maybe I'll remember.
I think that's a great analogy.
I think so too. And I think, going through undergrad, I think one of the main worries is, will I get into grad school? Am I doing enough extracurriculars? Like, am I good enough to be accepted? And that's like the huge fear that everyone has. But I wish that I had more faith in myself at that time, because once I applied to grad schools, I actually got into a few, and it wasn't just one, and I wasn't just I put myself down a lot because I had to be perfect. And I didn't need to be like squeaky clean perfect. I was doing good on my own. I had a good GPA, and I was doing a lot of extracurriculars, and I had a great, essay, and I did my research. And so just having faith in yourself, keep your grades up, focus on that, and but also focus on being a better person and overall, like, I don't know, wholesome person, because they also value that. You don't need to have your perfect GPA, because you'll still make it into grad school if they see your hard work, or if they see a big project that you've done, or, it's so many variables to it. So, yeah.
And Arva, I don't know if you had like similar teachers, but Yadi, I think this was our first class. It was my first speech class ever, and we had a teacher who came out day one, and she goes, think about your GPA. If it's not a 3.8 or higher, apply to the University of Alaska, because you're not getting in anywhere. And all of us were like, life got sucked out of us. We were little ones. We were, just starting. It was our first speech class. And someone had just scared the bejesus out of us. And then 2 years later, or 3, I guess, we were all applying to grad school, panicked, because we were thinking about that one line repeating in your head, if your GPA is not higher. And we all did fine. Mm-hmm. Arva, I don't know. Did you guys have a teacher that scared everything?
So my experience at Pace was a little different. I went to Pace University in Manhattan for my undergrad experience. I knew that I wanted to do speech in high school. So like when I went to Pace, I like jumped into the field. Like I was like, okay, my major is decided. I'm going to do speech pathology. But at Pace, like your first year basically is just taking some like regular courses that are needed within the university guidelines, as well as some electives. But me, being the annoying person that I am, I snuck into a speech class my second semester freshman year, and I was the only freshman in that class, and they were all sophomores in their second semester, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing here? But it was, well, I think it was phonetics, and I was like, wow, this is such an interesting class, like I'm so glad I did it. And so I was taking speech classes after that for the next 3 years, but I remember just being like, why would I like push myself to do more ahead of time? And then like that mentality just stayed with me for the rest of my undergrad career. Like I was always trying to one up myself, like, and I wished I could go back and talk to myself to like calm down a little. Like I was so competitive with my grades. I was so competitive, not with people around me alone, but like with myself. Like I have to do better on the next test because I got a 93. Like, do you remember when like getting a 93 was bad? Because I remember crying myself to sleep if I got anything lower than 98. And, and the thing that kind of fueled it was because we had guidance meetings like every end of the year. So you meet with your supervisor, and I was so like fearful, like if you don't have a certain GPA, like you're not going to be looked at. And then what could I have done better besides like everything I did? I was vice president of NISHLA. I was the secretary of NISHLA my junior year. Like I did everything possible, and I was sitting there and I was like, is my like high GPA not high enough? I remember just thinking to myself, like, am I going to be good enough for grad school? Like they told us that the top 10% of the class or of the classes in the United States that get into grad school, we're all panicked. We're a class of 14 students. That was my cohort. For 4 years, I was with 14 people. That's it. Wow. Tiniest cohort possible. 14 people. We were super close. We were close to professors. Our clinic was like really close as well. And we were all like, so you're telling me that like not even all of us in this class are going to get into grad school? And that was the truth. Not everyone got in. That was just a matter of fact of it. Like not everyone got in. And what do we have? We had our TSLDs as a cohort. We had clinical experience. We came with hours like that other students didn't have. And people still didn't get accepted. Like it just goes to show that grad school is a whole other ballpark. It's just a different level. Like everything you learn in undergrad can prepare you for like the rigor in grad school, but it doesn't prepare you for like what it takes to survive grad school, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, like, you need to be, like, on your toes academically, you know you need to be on your toes clinically, but do you know, like, how to manage getting a B on a test for the first time? Or how to manage getting a B plus in clinic for your first semester because A's aren't allowed. I wish we could be kinder to our, like, past selves. Like, if I could go back, I wish I could have, like, hugged myself a little more and been like, you are doing just fine, honey. Like, you applied to 14 grad schools, why?
I think about that money all the time. I'm like, where did that application money go?
Literally.
Like, I was so scared I wouldn't get in anywhere. I spent what must have been $1,000 on applications. $50 to this place, $50 to this place, $50, and then an extra $100 to get my transcript sent to that place. I'm like, why? For what reason was I so scared?
Yes.
Someone will like me, right? And if they don't, I'll try it.
I applied to 9.
9, 12, 14, we're all in, like, that big range of schools, and I remember being like, I don't think 14's enough.
I applied to less undergrad schools.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was the foundation. I should have thought about that one way harder than I thought about grad school.
Definitely.
But I was so scared that the pool would be so small because we were stressed out.
100%.
You know, and I listened to your story, RV, and I think how every person's journey is different, because I know students from Iona that didn't get into grad school at least the first time around, or I know people in grad school who have tried twice or have been out of undergrad for 5 years and then tried again. Like, everyone's journey is different, and I really wish I could give a magic recipe to tell you what it's going to take to get into grad school, because I don't know. Like, every person is so different. You know, you could have a 3.2 GPA but have really good job opportunities, and they'll still take you, you know, but it's just like this crazy journey that everyone goes through that it's hard to really pinpoint what the special recipe is to get into grad school. Getting into grad school requires examinations, though.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Who
it
would
does.
like to talk about what it takes to get into grad school?
If I'm being honest, I blacked out after that test. GRE went. That was it.
I can attest to the GRE a little bit because I think I'm still dealing with my PTSD from that exam. Flat out, I'm going to be honest, I'm not, like, a really heavy studier. Like, that's just never been me. I can pay attention in class, and, like, everything I learn in class, like, will stay in my head. That way when I study, I don't have to study as hard. That's the best way to put it. Like, my auditory skills are able to, like, kind of be my cushion, so I don't have to sit at home and, like, read a book for 20 hours. Now, there are some people who thrive off of studying, like, straight out of a book or straight out of, like, rewatching the classes, or just, like, heavy, like, full-on no breaks. I can't do it that way. So my GRE, the way I study for that is very similar to how I study for anything in grad school and in undergrad. I love test-taking skills. I don't think a test tests your knowledge. I think it tests how good you can, like, figure out what they're trying to tell you. That's how I always figured that out. And the GRE is, like, no different than the SAT. It's what? Math and verbal reasoning and writing?
Yeah. It's the SAT on steroids.
Literally, the SAT on steroids. So I was kind of like, all right, what are my good, like, test-taking skills? So for the essays, I've always been, like, a strong writer. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to study for the essays. I decided that I was going to look at what each essay meant, like, what a specific essay type meant. Like, what did I have to explain? Like, did I have to do a deductive essay? I don't know if that's what it was called, but something like that, where you had to explain, like, why something did something. I don't really remember that well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know where I'm going? Like, there were just, like, essay types.
Yeah.
Like an analytic reasoning essay. I really don't remember well, but
I don't remember what it was called. I just remember it being like, this town is having a party or something. Like, explain where they should put it or some stupid crap like that. And I was like,
exactly. So I feel like you can't study for the essays, like, flat out. Like, you can study, like, what the essay wants you to figure out, but you can't study, like, every possible case and then be prepared for it, because it's just not going to work. So the essays I didn't really study for, I did them on the spot. However, for verbal reasoning and for the quantitative reasoning, I studied for it by taking a ton of practice tests. I just took a ton of practice tests to get acquainted to the test itself. And then for some of the verbal reasoning questions, we had to use like we had to find words that like made sense in the fill-ins. Do you remember it was like all the words sounded like they belonged in like the Oxford Dictionary in like the back of the book where no one knew what they were talking about? Those
Uh-huh.
words. So I
Uh-huh.
would, like use flashcards to study some of those words, like the top 100 U's on the GRE was what I would do. And then for math, I'm hopeless in math. So I just kind of, again, took all the questions possible. Was that the
A
best?
friend of mine didn't know that there was a calculator. He took the entire test. We were sitting next to each other. I was like, why didn't you raise your hand? He was like, I went to hit the exit button and there the calculator popped down. I was like, you didn't know there was one there the entire time? Kids still pass though, if that makes any of you feel better.
But see, that's what I mean. Like, get acquainted.
It's still pass.
Yeah, but get acquainted to the test. If you don't know what the test looks like or how it feels to be took, then how can you take it? How it feels to be taken? Then you really aren't able to like function on the test comfortably. Like that's just my advice. And if you're like me in any form, like if you were someone who like didn't study for hours and hours without a break, like then that's the way to do it. I don't know how you guys studied for the GRE.
That is how I studied for the GRE. But if it's just like a big umbrella, if you're taking it on paper, study on paper. If you're taking it on the computer, study on the computer. Because I remember we did a NISHLA event. They did it every year. It was the GRE event. We would sit, and a guy came. He was a test-taking person. He was like Arva. He was like a strategist. And he helped us figure out, like, you know, what we should do. And it was on paper. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'll write this, and I'll underline this. And then I started, like, looking for practice tests. I was like, crap, my test is online. And the minute I started studying like that, it was a different ballpark. Because you can't underline, you can't circle or cross out. You have to like get that in your head that, you know, process of elimination is not the way we were taught in elementary school because I can't physically cross out the answer I'm thinking. And also, so you don't end up like my dear friend, take the tutorial at the beginning of the test. If it says this is where the calculator is, this is the exit button, this is how much time you have, this is how you can mark a question and go back. Watch the whole thing. Study that. Because that is time that you're going to waste trying to figure out the test when you could go skip the question and come back to it. So, yeah, that I studied the way Arva did, which is just taking practice tests and learning skills. But the only thing I could add to that is please practice on the platform of which you are taking the test. Same goes for the Praxis, EAS, I don't know, LSATs. If you happen to be a lawyer and you're enjoying this podcast, make sure you are studying on the platform that you are taking the test.
How about you, Yuritsa?
Yadi.
I agree with what both of you guys said. Let me just take it back a little bit with some quick facts about the GRE. So the GRE stands for Graduate Record Examination.
Really?
Yes, I searched it just now. The duration is 3 hours, 45 minutes. Sections are a verbal, a quantitative, which is the math, and the analytical writing. The cost is $205. And the max score you can get is 170, but the average is 150. So most graduate schools and business schools require this test. I agree with both Arva and Gracie's experience. However, I knew coming into this test before, I took it the summer before my senior year. So I just wanted to get it out of the way. I was like, I know that, first of all, the SATs sucked for me. I'm not a standardized test taker. This math, I don't know what this math means. Like, I'm not strong in any of these subjects. Like, I just was like, I'm going to take it one time because I don't have more than $205 to take it again. I was like, I'm taking it once, and like the magical universe better help me. So I took it once. Again, I kind of had an idea of what schools were looking for in terms of their scoring, which is around the average, the 150. I didn't hit all those marks. Not like I wasn't like completely far away from them, but I know that I was like a little bit lower on each section. And it was just one of those tests that I was like, I really hate this and I hate this experience and I'm not going to take this again and I hate myself because I'm taking this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
So
I think a lot of schools have become more understanding about that. Not only the GRE, but the SAT and the ACTs. I didn't even take the ACTs. I was like, screw it. Schools are understanding more and more recently that it is such an uncomfortable environment, and it is so not indicative of your skills as a thinker to be put in that kind of quick pressured, analytical, like, oh, write an essay really, really fast. Like, no, sometimes you need to stop and think. Like, maybe the career you're looking for doesn't involve that. Like, you just kind of need to also keep that in mind going in. Don't be so stressed, because they also get it.
yeah.
Like, they have a score that they would like, which is just please be average, but don't freak out either, because it really is okay. They need it more as like a, oh, and they took the GRE.
Yeah.
Not unless it's a very, 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 very competitive program. You know what I mean? Where it's like you and somebody else are pinned against each other and they got 1 point higher than you and they're in. Unless it's like that, most schools will just look at it and go, okay, they had it. Yay.
So you reminded me of something I wanted to say before we talked about this. And so, one, your GRE score does not determine your worth or how intelligent you are. And two, study the way that is comfortable for you. Do not change your study tactics just because Jonathan in the back row is studying it like this. Like, do it the way that works for you. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, if you're not someone who can study very quickly or like study like in a cram session kind of way, then don't put yourself through that. Like, do what feels good to you. Do what like makes the most sense to you. Like, if you think studying for a month is what you need, then do that. Just don't push yourself past your like your limits and like what feels comfortable to you. And then something else I want to preface with is that ASHA EdFind was like every school wanted. So like when I was looking at grad schools, I was like, okay, NYU, what are their GRE scores like to get in? And it was like 153 in verbal, 152 in math. Okay, like, and then you moved on. What did NYMC want? A 155 in verbal, 153 in math. Like that. So ASHA EdFind is what I really recommend to any undergrads out there who are applying to grad school. If you want to know anything about the grad school, like it's standing with ASHA accreditation, what their GRE scores are to get in, what the cohort looks like, what your kind of like your course of study looks like. ASHA EdFind is like your perfect way to go.
And after you've found a place like that, feel free to look for somebody that goes there, because I can't tell you how many times people from Iona that were still at Iona while I was at New York Med knew that like what schools we had gone to. So ask, did anybody the year above go to this place? Message them, ask them what they think of the school, because they had the most similar experience to what you had as opposed to just anybody, and if you contact faculty from the school, of course they're going to sell you on it. Ask somebody who potentially thinks like you, who got the exact same education you did, and how are they handling it. And there were a few people from my undergrad, and you two too, I think, right? Or even people we didn't know, or I know you had your Speechy account at that point. People were like, hey, you go to NYMC, what's it like? You need that. You need somebody unbiasedly to tell you, honestly, it's hard, but you can do it. Like, but you know what I mean? You need that kind of support too when choosing your school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't count the amount of people who have DM'd me on my personal Instagram or like my speech Instagram and were like, hey, I see you go to NYMC, like what's it like? This program is blank. Is it difficult? Is it easy? Is it hard? B, what's the cohort like? C, what's your clinical experiences like? Like, know what you want out of your school. That's going to help you gear where to apply. And that's where we're going to get into like how me, Grace, and Yuritsa kind of chose where to apply and like how we chose NYMC.
So applying to grad school for me was, it's a tough experience. I think applying to places and the application process is very stressful. So what helped me throughout that process was creating an Excel sheet of the schools I was interested in, the tuition, the supplemental writing, whether it was on SIDCAS. I think that's what it's called, because you guys remember that SIDCAS? Okay.
Wow, that was like a blast from the past. Yeah.
Okay, right. Like, is it on SIDCAS? Is it not? Kind of all the things that I might need for it, whether I needed an essay or 2 essays and tuition, all that stuff. So that kind of helped me out. I didn't have there wasn't one specific place pulling me. I just knew that one aspect that was important to me was whether it had the bilingual extension or not. Now, New York Medical College doesn't have that bilingual extension, but I chose it. And so I was between a few schools, and yeah, so New York Med didn't have it. But the reason why I chose New York Med was because I really wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to be able to have the medical aspect of being an SLP because I hadn't really experienced too much of it, and I wanted to learn about it. And I felt that if I did a more medical, it would be easier to kind of transition to school if that's what I wanted. Whereas like if I was in a program more oriented to educating students for school careers in schools and pediatrics, I thought I couldn't, it would be at least harder because I wouldn't know anything about the medical side. So I kind of like jumped up in case I wanted to kind of transition to other places. So that was the main thing that brought me there. But also was the location. It was I mean the clinical experiences are just superior. Like it just showed, I just saw all the courses we were taking, the credits. I couldn't say no to it because I'm like, this is the best school for me. Like this is the best school in this area in my opinion, and the best school for me. So I just kind of had to jump at it. And like I said, I wasn't like super passionate. I just like did a pros and cons and said like, here are all the pros, and like there's like one con, and it's like the one con is like it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be really hard, and I'm gonna cry every day, and it's okay, but it's gonna be really hard. So I just jumped at it, and that's why I chose it. Gracie, what about you?
Similarly, also made an Excel sheet. Location was part of it. You know, I wasn't sure if at the time I wanted to move. It was a time for a change. Was life going to be like this brand new experience if I went to grad school? And I remember I forgot which college. I went for an interview, and they asked me if I had any questions for them. And I said, what are your hospital affiliations? Like, would I be able to get that experience as well? And they were like, we really don't have many. It's very competitive. And immediately in my head, I was like, well, I want that option. So no, like these were the things I was ticking off in my head as I went. And I went to the NYMC welcome day, and they told us how, you know, everybody does a hospital rotation their first semester. I was like, what? Yes. Like that was awesome. I was super excited about that. And then I was thinking, you know, what if I don't like medical? Like, as I was thinking that, professor said we've had some students in the past tell us that they wished that they had taken the education courses so that they could get their TSSLD. So now it's required. You all take the courses. You take everything. You take the trainings. You get, all you need to do is take the EAS to get your teacher certification. And that's the only thing that's up to you. The rest of it, you're good to go when you come here. And that was such a weight off of my shoulders. Like I am tired of paperwork and applying at that point and what goes here and what goes there. And the thought of more testing and more applications and doing it by myself, I didn't even want to think about. And when they said, we'll do it with you, I was like, yes, like that was something that was important to me because I don't do well when I have to make those decisions by myself. Right now, I just had to consolidate my loans. I was on the phone with the guy for like half an hour. Could not do it by myself. I need help. And it made me feel good that I would be supported in that way. So that definitely went into picking my school. And the other schools were nothing wrong with them, but they didn't have what I was looking for. And you just have to, like, some people absolutely, the thought of going to a hospital already makes them dizzy. Do not go to New York Medical College. Like, it's just the questions you need to ask yourself while you're in that interview. And that helps you pick. Right, Arv?
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. So I, a little differently, wanted a hospital. Like I knew that I was meant for a hospital my senior year at Pace University. So when I was applying to schools, the biggest thing for me was that it had a medical component somehow, some way, right? Now, there's not many schools that do offer that. So the ones I did apply were New York Medical College and what was it called? Seton Hall University also had a medical component. At the time, I had not heard about MGH, so Mass General Hospital, which is affiliated with Harvard. I had not heard about that place yet, so I didn't apply there. When I applied, I also had an Excel sheet, except my Excel sheet I have on my TPT.
We're so type A.
Some more shameless self-promoting. I have a how to apply to grad schools guide on my Teachers Pay Teachers. And what I put up there is exactly what I use for myself. It's a guide of like an Excel sheet, like to apply, not to apply, what you need, how I did my application process. And then when I had gotten into all my schools, what I had done was a pros and cons list. I was like, what's a pro, what's a con? And then I also had said like, who has a hospital placement, who doesn't? Who's medical, who's not medical? What's the price, what's not the price? Do I have to move? Do I not have to move? So ironically, I didn't want to move. I wanted to stay as close to home as possible, somewhere that was commutable. And of course, I completely sidetracked and went to a school where I'd have to move and live alone and get a whole new experience. But basically, the reason I chose New York Medical College, and just to preface this again, we are not sponsored by NYMC. Like, this is not us trying to get you to attend. We just happen to have like a lot of good things to say about it. But the biggest thing for me with NYMC was that it had a medically inclined program. Like, that's what it's known for being medically inclined. And it had gross anatomy. At that time, when I saw gross anatomy as an option with cadavers, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. To actually like see the human body, like get to know the anatomy so much more like close up. And so that was like a big thing for me. So when I chose NYMC, I was like, it has anatomy and it's medically inclined and I'm in a hospital for sure. Like, how can I not do it? So I went to NYMC's acceptance day where I actually met Gracie for the first time.
And we took a tour of that gross anatomy lab.
We did. We saw the gross anatomy lab, and Gracie and I kind of like half bonded over that a little bit. But that acceptance day, I left there, and all I could think about was, I can't be anywhere else. I was so drawn to that program that I couldn't picture myself anywhere else, and that's what did it for me. You're going to have a different experience, but you have us to ask if you have any questions about applying to grad schools, or what it's like to have attended NYMC, or even just like what it's like to apply at different schools, go to interviews. Please ask a question, leave us a comment, subscribe, let us know what you think.
One last piece of advice. When you are applying to grad schools, especially in a tighter cohort, it could get a little bit tense with everybody all around you. And I remember when I first got into a program, I was super excited about it. And my clinical supervisor, she asked me, and she was like, have you applied anywhere? And I was like, I just found out this afternoon that, I got into Adelphi. It was the first place I heard from. And she said, have you told anybody yet? And I said, no, just my mom. And she was like, okay, you need to be ready for this. I went, for what? She was, all of your friends right now are panicked. You heard back. They might not have. They might be in the next wave or the wave after that. But for now, whatever you say is going to cause some sort of panic. So be ready for people to look at you with that, oh, congratulations. Like, it's a tenser time. So please be kind to your fellow classmates too. They're just as stressed and scared as you are. So when you walk into a room, it's nice to tell people that you received a letter, so at least they can like start to think, because I know everyone was on Grad School Cafe. That was it, Grad School Cafe. Everybody was checking when letters came out. They're like, oh, Adelphi's came out. St. John's came out. Like, everyone, have you heard? Did you apply? Like, it was crazy, intense all the time. So it's fine to tell people, be proud of yourself. But maybe don't do the hop in the room and go, guess who got in? Like, just take it easy because you don't know who just didn't get it. So please be proud of yourself. That's not what I'm saying. Please be proud of yourself. But also, be kind to your fellow grad mates.
That's just reminding
grad mates.
Please do not go to Grad School Cafe. I cannot count the days I spent on that website crying my eyes out. And I got into the schools I thought I didn't get into because I sat there and I looked at those comments. Half the comments, by the way, are from years ago. You have to look at the date that they were even posted. So just be careful when you use that website. Use at your own caution. If you want to spend your nights crying and eating some ice cream, go for it. But if you want to be happy and remain as positive as possible, I recommend that you don't.
It's interesting you guys mentioned that because I have no idea what that is. And I'm kind of glad I don't know what that is.
I never went on it, but I had friends that gave me updates because I knew I was going to get crazy. It was kind of like, what? I know that I can't delete social media, but this is something I haven't had and I won't need. Like, you know what I mean? It was one of those, before you do it, just ask your friend. When you find out, just send me a text. Like, don't spend your life on it. Just like Arva says.
Like I did.
Find out from a friend who goes, oh, I got my letter. Maybe yours is coming soon.
If you're like super, super concerned and you don't want to go to grad school cafe and you don't want to ask your friend because of the competition, just call the school and ask. I'm just wondering, when do your responses come out? Do you have waves? How does it work? And that's it.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the tension between like you and your friends and people in the cohort, because it does, even though you don't want it to be that way, no one wants it that way, it does get a little tense. So that's really important thing to note too, to like kind of keep to yourself and just be cautious of all those things that Gracie and Arva kind of let you guys know about. So next up, our next episode, we'll be talking about our grad school experience, how we survived, and then taking the practice. So that'll be
How we survive.
How do we survive? How did we manage through our internships and our classes, and then the praxis and other examinations that you need while you're in grad school to complete your degree.
I don't know where you're listening now, but tell your friends. Listen on SoundCloud, we're SLPs in a pod. YouTube, SLPs in a podcast. That's the podcast you're watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't. Tell us what you want. I don't know. Tell us something. Follow us on Instagram. Our SLPs in a podcast is our group Instagram, but then there's also our individuals, Arva T SLP, Gracie Z SLP, and Yuritsa A SLP. She has an A, it doesn't rhyme.
There's no A, it's just Yuritsa SLP. It's Yuritsa SLP. My last name starts in a vowel, ends in a vowel, and my last name starts in a vowel. It's a mess. It's a mess. Okay, so we'll see you guys next week on our next episode, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it.